afternoon and welcome to FM Tech Week 2025. I'm Ed Buckley, and on behalf of the information technology community of IFMA, I want to thank each of you for joining day two of this unique virtual symposium. Brian Haynes is the Chief Strategy Officer at FM Systems, bringing over 25 years of experience in marketing strategy and product management for cloud and desktop solutions in our industry. He's a recognized thought leader on the future of the workplace, AI, and smart buildings. Brian contributes regularly to Forbes Business and Technology Councils and speaks at major industry events. So we're super lucky that we've got Brian here today, as he also serves as the vice chair of the NIBS COBIE task group and as a board member of our Technology Council. He holds a Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Arizona. And while I put my teeth back in, Brian, over to you for our presentation on creating a winning strategy for smart and autonomous buildings.
Thanks, Ed. I'm really excited to talk about this presentation and this topic today. I wanted to thank IFMA, FM Systems, and now Johnson Controls. For those of you who don't know, we got acquired by Johnson Controls just under 2 years ago, and that acquisition is complete now, and really excited about that, and also the support that we've given IFMA over the years. I've been an IFMA member for decades and one of the leaders in the IT community for a number of years now, and I love to support the mission of this organization and of this group. I'm really excited today. I've got a pretty tight time frame for today, so I'm just going to hop right into it. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about just a little bit of an agenda overview. We're going to do a smart building level set so that we're all on the same page. And while we do that, it's interesting. This is a little bit of a cart before the horse thing. We're going to pop up a little question for you guys to answer where you are on your smart building journey. And you may be saying to yourself, Brian, I don't know what a smart building is yet because you haven't told me. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this up there and let's see what we get in terms of the answers back. But I'm going to go ahead and proceed. So we'll do a little bit of a smart building level set. I'm going to talk about some of the benefits of developing a smart building strategy. The first thing I'm going to talk about before I get there is really why smart buildings and what the challenges are. Depending on where you are globally, there's definitely a need to focus on things like decarbonization goals. And if sustainability is not the angle that you're going at, think of it as saving money on energy by operating our buildings much more efficiently and really reflect things such as actual building usage compared to actual building operations, turning the lights out, bringing the building systems down when no one's there, bringing them up when they are, limiting resources, giving access to resources such as elevators, the ability to be able to book and have all of that handled sort of behind the scenes by your smart building. A lack of resources. One of the things that IFMA talks about a lot is that we've had a lot of aging up and aging out, and a lot of people within our industry are taking that experience with them. Not a lot of organizations that I'm talking to these days are really in a massive hiring mode. So you're tasked with doing more with either the same amount of staff or less staff. So using your building is, I'm going to talk a little bit about thinking about your building as a partner to help you scale the services that you provide and the better workplace experience that you can provide through using a smart building approach. Hybrid working and productive workplaces. The workplace has gotten more chaotic than it ever has in my entire career. It used to be when I entered the career, the workplace was pretty much, everybody came in every day, everybody sat in the same spot every day. Now the way we think about work with things like hybrid work, although I think that's an overused term, it's just the way we do it these days. It's a lot more chaotic. And it makes it very difficult to measure the performance of how your buildings are being used. And the last is data, buildings, and equipment. We'll talk a little bit about that, because a lot of people feel like making smart buildings is all about base building design and construction. I'm here to tell you today that that's not true. I have a client that's a university in the UK. They've got buildings 700-800 years old that they have made smarter by introducing lightweight IoT-based technologies to help them gain a better understanding of those building operations. So let's go a little bit through the evolution of smart buildings. On the left, we've got legacy buildings. And I will tell you right now, that's probably 99% of the built environment in the world. I usually love to walk in. I do a lot of presentations. I walk onto the stage and I look around and wherever I'm presenting and I say, this building's pretty dumb. And I almost have a little bit of an affliction from that, because anytime I walk into any buildings these days, I look up at the ceiling and I try to see if I can see technology that's being utilized in that building to help the owner and even the occupier better understand how the building's being used. And I can tell you, most buildings don't have a lot in them. About a decade or so ago, we started to see connected buildings where building automation systems started to become a little bit easier to use and understanding, getting data from those. That leads us to where we are now, smart buildings. And we're really seeing rapid innovation around making buildings smarter. Like I said, introducing lightweight IoT technologies for doing things like building utilization, indoor air quality, smart lighting systems, smart access control systems, smart elevators, smart energy usage and metering and monitoring of resources. All of those things are beginning to make their way into our buildings, which are helping us to have amazing insights into how those buildings are being operated. Then that all leads to sort of the golden carrot here, and that is ultimately we are going to see the advent of truly autonomous buildings, where those buildings are helping us operate them on a daily, monthly, weekly, hourly, minutely basis, really trying to help us better understand automating workflows. I've seen building automation systems, including our own here at JCI, that are doing some self-analysis and auto-correcting of things like imbalances in the system. That's happening now. In the future, that stuff is all going to be happening autonomously, and really working with facility managers as an extension, really having them be your partner as they help you better provide that environment for occupants. Data is really the foundation for all of this. I'm not going to go into this slide too much. We are providing this deck for your review afterwards. But think of a smart building as a building that's really connected via data and all of the systems and controls within that building, leveraging building data to meet sustainability goals, optimizing things like safety and security, enhance occupant health and productivity. That is at your fingertips now. I'm going to go through a primer, which is sort of a 7-step process that helps you to start going on this journey. You can't flip the switch and have a building be smart tomorrow. You can make it smarter and you can start going down that path. But let me go ahead and share with you some of those things that I think are truly important to help us close the digital divide. So think of it in the past as, you know, the building engineer on the left may have access to the building automation system using older legacy protocols to get data out of that system. You got the facilities team on the right doing space and occupancy planning, managing maintenance, and the two of them really weren't sharing data very well. We now have technology that allows us to start doing this and really presenting and up-leveling that data so that we can get better insight into our operations. The next thing that's coming along, and I got to tell you, if you've been into any presentations, if you go to IFA World Workplace, if you go to Facility Fusion, you're going to be hearing about AI. We all talk about it all the time. But really, AI, just to bring it down to its most simple form, it's the capability of a machine to imitate intelligent human behavior, which is kind of a very basic analysis of what AI is. AI at its basis is helping us as humans synthesize massive sets of data coming from all kinds of building systems and making sense of that data. We as humans really aren't very good at that. We're really great at being able to be reactive. We're really great at being able to understand like feelings and use intuition to help us operate our buildings, but we're really not great at synthesizing, I'm talking massive data sets, where you're getting hit with billions of little pieces of information. And when you bring all of that information together and you can ask through simple language, hey, building, tell me the top 5 things that I need to pay attention to right now in my maintenance plan. Tell me which one of my buildings out of 100 is underperforming in terms of occupancy and utilization. You get instant answers to those questions with things like AI. And that is really building over time. It's a foundation of what is required of AI, or I'm sorry, of smart buildings and autonomous buildings in the future. This is just a component that you need to understand and embrace. I use AI tools every single day. I use ChatGPT, I use Copilot, I use a number of them to help me get better, crisper, and faster. But keep in mind, humans always need to be involved with that interaction and that use. You need to evaluate, you need to make sure it makes sense, you need to be able to bring the pieces together, and you need to be able to ask the questions. Truly understanding the questions and having complete data sets coming from your building is required for this to really operate well in the end. So the smart building journey. I see this all the time. Somebody builds a new building and they put all of these really beautiful building automation systems in and all of these sensors that do utilization, indoor air quality, you name it. but they forgot to ask what they were trying to achieve when they did that. So the best place to start, I believe, is understanding what you want to achieve by making a building smarter and asking a series of questions. And those really come back to the benefits of smart buildings. And I'm going to share a couple with you here. What if your corporation or the organization that you belong to says, listen, we're going to be a sustainable net zero company or organization. Facilities worldwide use 40%, they're responsible for 40% of our global energy usage and carbon footprint, period. The best way to help us save this planet and make our planet operate more, our buildings operate more efficiently, is to make them smarter and help them be part of our smart building journey. What if you want to upgrade your building or portfolio capabilities? You want to have a better understanding of utilization so you can understand if I need to rationalize my real estate portfolio into the future. What if I don't have enough touchdown space for employees that are coming in? What if Wednesdays were overcrowded and Tuesdays were undercrowded? Like, what can we do about that? Building equipment really needs to last longer. Like I said, we're really in a mode right now where most of the industry is asking us how they can extend the life of their existing facilities portfolio, and that includes the building assets, the equipment, and everything inside of them. We get asked this question every single day as a building solutions provider. What can you do to help me make sure that my building and my equipment last longer? How can I improve my employee well-being and health and productivity? How can I make the air quality of my buildings better? How can I make my employees more productive by giving them a more positive workplace experience? How can I bring them in if I have return to office initiatives? Is this one of the strategies of my company? Is this one of the drivers that I need to do to help me make smart building decisions? Delivering an inviting workplace experience, especially if you're in a hiring mode, you want to get new talent, you want to get new and greater capabilities within your organization. Maybe you're growing quickly. You don't want an old building that feels tired, that really saps the energy of the audience that you're trying to attract and get them to come in. And then the last, but this is just one more example of some of the benefits, identifying and addressing energy waste, because that's really a top level one that's quite easy. This next step in your smart building journey is to identify secondary and tertiary drivers for adoption. I think this one comes down to things that are a little bit more specific to facilities teams, really looking at things like inefficiency. Like, you only have a certain amount of staff, you have a certain amount of footprint, you have a certain amount of capabilities, space types, et cetera. How can I use them optimally within my facility? So maybe we've got a plan to maximize utilization. Maybe someone noticed throughout the pandemic and afterwards that our buildings aren't used as much as they used to be. What can I do about that? Do I need as much? Can I reconfigure my space to maximize who is there? Can I reduce waste? Can I reduce duplicated effort? In other words, I've got a limited facilities team, maybe a maintenance team. How can I help them be more efficient and help them get more out of their day, their work day, without spending longer hours? Who wants to spend more than the 8-hour or 8.5-hour workday or whatever it is getting done what could be done, right? So longer hours, using your buildings to help us kind of address that. Confusing and inconvenient scheduling. Like I said, things are getting a lot more complicated. The way people are using buildings, the way space is utilized, either reserved or however it's being used in a hybrid way, is really difficult. Making sure that when people do come in, they have space available to them that helps them execute the mission of the organization that you're in. And then difficulty in assessing information they need to do on their job, access to that information at your fingertip, whether or not it's through a desktop browser, kiosks in your hallways, digital signage, maybe it's mobile phones, and then being able to communicate to all of the audiences within your facilities. Maybe I want to say, listen, this floor is going to be this floor is not going to be usable today. Floor 3 of building 5 in New York City is not going to be usable today because we're doing a major upgrade to that floor, or maybe the elevator needs to be taken offline. Communicating that to building occupants is really another one. The next one here is the third step is formalizing a clear vision for what success looks like. In other words, we understand what we want to achieve. We understand the sort of secondary reasons why we're going to go on this smart building journey. The third one is really being able to measure how well we're doing. And that means if you want reports or dashboards, or if you want some kind of AI analysis, figure out what you want that output to look like so that you can measure success along the way. One of the things, and as an architect and being in the architecture profession in the past, I'm no longer in that profession because I'm in software, but one of the things I always questioned was, people who design and build buildings, how often do they go back and check to see how successful they were with what they built? You can do this through technology literally multiple times a day. It's not just about doing bed checks anymore, where we would walk through with a clipboard and a printed out floor plan. You can literally understand how your building's being utilized, how your assets are being utilized, real time, in the past, into the future at increments. You can project out into the future, but you really need to understand what success looks like to you so that you can measure as you go away. Because I really believe nobody gets it right the first time. You should iterate as you go through this. So start with gathering and auditing the data that you currently have. You probably have a lot of information on your buildings already. You may have an integrated workplace management system, a CMMS, a CAFM solution. You may have HR data that you can use. You may have spreadsheets. You may have, you name it. You may have a lot of information. Audit what you have. Baseline your operations before you do this. In other words, to know where you want to go, you have to know where you are. So measuring the performance of your building, you're underutilized. Your maintenance costs are too high. Your assets aren't lasting as long as you need to. Baseline them and then set some benchmarks. Where do we want to be if we make this investment in time and in money and in resources so that we can understand, are we hitting the mark? Are we successful? And if not, can we iterate? Can we go back to the beginning and just keep getting better and refine our operations? One of the examples that I have is an international airport in Atlanta. You guys can probably guess which one. They implemented a smart buildings and building automation system to help them address this. The results that they achieved were 95% of automated identification of manual defect lists, reducing team effort by 5 to 10 hours per week. That's massive in terms of the maintenance professionals that you have at your fingertips. They're not spending more time, they're spending less time. And when you think about that, 5 to 10 hours a week, that's like what, it's 10 to 20% of their time, in other words, on an operating week. Lowered operational costs through proactive maintenance rather than reactive repairs, so they were really getting ahead of their repair schedule. And then reduced passenger complaints. In other words, people were having a better experience because they chose to make the airport smarter through implementing BAS technology as well as IoT-based technology to help them better monitor and manage the maintenance of that airport. All right, so the next part of the journey, I'm going to check my timing here because I promise you I'm going to stick to our time frame. Don't go it alone. You are not the first person to go on this journey. What I love about IFMA and what I love about our community is we share. I can go to chapter meetings, which I love to do. I could go to events. I could call up colleagues. I could see them on LinkedIn, and I can ask, you did this. Tell me the pitfalls. Tell me what I should be thinking about. Don't go it alone. There's stories out there. There are a lot of organizations that have stuck their toe into the pool of smart building journey. And then there are other organizations that I see where I'm actually seeing new job titles begin to come along. I met a director of smart building strategy for a global pharmaceutical just a few months ago. What a great technology. I love that because they're thinking strategically about helping all of their buildings get smarter so that they can exceed the mission of their organization to deliver. And this organization was pharmaceutical, delivering better results for their research and development of things like drugs and therapeutic capabilities. So don't go it alone. There's a lot of information out there. Let's see, or some of the questions you can have. Also, asking questions for help. Reach out to your IoT team. I will tell you, if you want to get a visit that's unwelcome, put an IoT device somewhere on your wall and don't check it out with IoT first, especially if or your IT department, especially if it's unsecure. So ask questions of IT, ask questions of other parts of your organization, such as internally, not just people who are outside of your organization, but how are we going to secure these systems? What kind of customer support? If I'm going to pick a certain company, are they going to be able to support us? Am I picking this solution for one building? Am I picking it for a campus? Am I picking it for 100 buildings globally? Really, there's a lot of questions that you could be asking to get help before you make these decisions. The next part is really preparing for deployment. I love this one because this is really about starting to build consensus with your occupants. And this involves things such as, are there infrastructure challenges in your deployment? So if I'm in a building that's really old, or if I'm in a building that's really new, maybe I've got a building in my portfolio that's 100 years old and it's got thick concrete walls, and it's very difficult to do any core drilling. Maybe it's historic, maybe it's got poor Wi-Fi. You need to think about that before you deploy. Do the devices that you want to deploy, do they work on Wi-Fi? Do they work on other technologies like LoRaWAN or technologies that are a little bit more successful with getting through those kinds of environments? Am I going to have to drill? Is there space above in the interstitial spaces that allow me to be able to run cables? Are the devices PoE, power over Ethernet, or am I going to have to get 115 volt or something involved? You need to think about that stuff. Have you included your IT colleagues in your plans? In other words, we're going to be rolling out new technology. Do you have an IT partner on board with you that can help you sort of navigate the policies of the organization around securing devices on your network? And are there institutional HR policies in place that need to be considered? And I think that this one is absolutely critical, because one of the things that makes people nervous, and I could tell you this because I've experienced it many times, is when something shows up either in their office or in their hallway that looks maybe like a camera, right? Because then they start to think, oh, I'm being spied on. I have not seen a single organization develop a smart building strategy around like corporate office environment or healthcare or higher education, any of those. That's about that. It is about understanding how the facility is being used so that they can better plan and optimize for the future. They can reduce energy costs, reduce maintenance costs, improve a better workplace experience, measure indoor air quality so we can adjust things and understand how can we provide a better environment. But you really need to check with your institutional and HR policies as part of going through this, because you always want to be able to create that communication plan that helps your employees understand what you're ultimately trying to achieve. So if you go all the way back to the beginning where I said, before you start doing this, understanding what you're trying to achieve before you roll it out, let the occupants know what you're trying to achieve. We're doing this because we want to provide a better workplace experience to all of you. All right, I'm pretty good on time and I'm almost to the end. All right, so the next part is probably the most exciting part, all aboard. We went through this journey at FM Systems while we were going through the acquisition. Our lease ended in our old facility. That old facility, you know, in its day was Class A office space. When we first selected that about 14, 15 years ago, we thought it was really great, but it was really an island. There was no access to amenities. There was no food in the building to go anywhere. You had to get in a car. There was no transportation. There were no bike paths. We decided to do something completely different, and that was go more urban. You've got access to amenities in our new facility, but we also decided that we were going to measure the performance of this space, which I'm sitting in right now. Is a really exciting office. We probably oversensitized or censored this space more than any building I've ever seen. There's so many sensors in here. But really what we wanted to do was measure our performance, and we communicated to our employees that we were creating a smart office. We've got, you know, a really big digital display out front that has what we call a live view. In other words, as soon as you walk in, you can see what space is available. You can see what space is not available. Maybe your favorite office is being used by one of your friends, but you can really see all of that. So really part of the all aboard process is communicating to the employees that are going to be coming into your space what's happening in detail. Listen, we're making our building smarter. You've noticed that we've introduced some devices above the doors that are helping us to understand better how many people are coming in and how many people are leaving. None of these devices can identify who you are. They're all anonymized. This is about helping the facility team match the operations to the utilization, how the change will benefit them. In other words, you've got a long commute. Maybe you came in on the train. It was a slow train ride. Maybe something broke down, took you a really long time to get here. And then you get there and there's no space available for you to sit down. That's really not a positive experience. This is a benefit that you can sell to them. Listen, you're going to be able to see on your phone. You're going to be able to understand, but go ahead and book something in advance, or understand that 70% of your colleagues are going to be in on Tuesday. Maybe I'll go in on Tuesday. Thursday, only 20% of your colleagues are going to be in. Maybe I won't go in that day. How and when the change is being implemented, so communicating ahead of time. What we did when we did the all aboard for our office is that we even bought a bunch of hard hats. We did it as the build out was being completed. And then after the building rolled out, we walked through everybody through the space. We showed them all the technology. We explained to them how to use it. We really helped them, and we got everyone excited about this change. And it's been widely embraced, and we write about this quite a bit. Also, how will the change disrupt their normal workflow, if at all? Maybe you're going to be upgrading an existing facility with some smart building technology, making your conference room smarter, maybe putting in some conferencing technology. Maybe you're going to be replacing the lighting with a more upgraded digital lighting system. Let them know when that's going to be happening and how it could affect their work. If power is going to be down, or if like conference rooms are not going to be available because AV equipment is being upgraded. Let them know that you're making it smarter. Ultimately, it's going to lead to a much better experience, better meetings, better workplace experience, and it's going to take a couple of days. And these are the days that it's going to be happening, so that they feel like they're part of that process. So really minimizing the impact of their normal workflow, and also minimizing the impact for how long that's going to take. So that's really our smart building journey. I think that this is a great primer and a really simple to use guide. You are going to be provided with this deck so that you can go through these, going back to the beginning, understanding what you want to achieve, then sort of the secondary things that you want to achieve, formalizing the clear vision so that you know what success looks like and everyone knows when things aren't going well or when things are. Don't go it alone. Prepare for deployment. Your all aboard journey, making sure that everything is set and been tested and ready to go, and then letting your journey begin. Here's another one of my favorite. Looks like we just popped up another one. I'm going to just wrap up here in about 30 seconds. Another office, a large pharmaceutical in New York City, and what they achieved. I loved this building when I got to tour it because it was really, they were going for LEED Platinum and WELL Platinum certifications. They wanted an immensely healthy environment for their employees, but they also wanted to really reduce the amount of energy being used, and they did that through a variety of smart building technologies that we got to be involved in. And let's see, I believe, oh yeah, best practices in the end. Success requires clear goals, identifying your end users and expertise, ensuring that the solution will meet the intended user's needs, choose the right solution for your journey. So really go out there and check what you're trying to achieve. Know your buildings. So audit the information and understand what you're up against, and then stage pilots and iterate. And shoo, I think I made it. I think I've got 1 minute to spare. And Ed, I think I'm going to be turning it back over to you.
My gosh, Brian, that was absolutely fabulous. I have to say, from a personal perspective, I think you covered more and packed more meat into that than I've experienced in some of these smart building, I'd say, classes that I've been to. So I'm kind of happy that this is going to go on YouTube, because then I can slow it down and actually get the
Great.
rest of it. But it was incredible. One of the key messages that I got from this, which I'm going to take away with me, is that it isn't necessarily about getting smart. It's about getting smarter, um,
Yes.
making better use of the data that you've got, and working with the data and working to clean up the data to make it more readily available and usable. And lastly, I think you did a marvelous job talking about all of this is really for the sake of what, and it's for the sake of efficiency, and it's for the sake of the comfort and the health and the productivity of the occupants of the building. So thank you very much. So everybody, we have two more sessions lined up today, from Marshall McFarland, followed by Gabe Veach. And we'll be kicking off again in about 45 minutes with Marshall to demystify the CMMS. So thank you again, Brian. And thank you, everybody, for joining today. And hopefully see you all in about 45 minutes. Thanks very much. Bye-bye now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.